So let's talk about another important aspects under economics, and that is the economic systems. Now economy, as we know, has various agents, and this economic systems describes a way in which economy is actually organized and the economy runs. It could include the alternative views of resource allocation, it could be, and there is where we have three categories under which we talk about economic systems. Those are a market economy where the market forces governs the demand and supply, allocation of the resources, and there is a minimal interference of the government. The next is a mixed economy. Before that, let's talk about a planned economy. So planned economy is one where government allocates the resources, and it's more or less a kind of a communist political system which aims for social equality. Good models could be North Korea, Laos, Cambodia. The next is a mixed economy. Mixed economy is one where you have a combination of the market economy as well as the planned economy. So market economy brings in the elements of privatization. Planned economy brings in the element of government allocation, and together when they are placed, it is what is known as a mixed economy. Good examples are UK, Germany, Canada, a little of America, where we could say there is more of privatization, but still there is government interference. So there is a kind of mixed government, mixed systems, economic systems that are seen actually into play. The next is what are the economic questions that we address, be it a market economy, be it a planned economy, or be it a mixed economy. So the most important question that we address is how actually the production should take place, and that is what goods to be produced, what services to be brought into the economy, and there is where we address the question of what production should take place. The next important question that we have is how much production should take place. So this how much implies the method that should take into account or the process of production that should take into play. And the third important aspect is for whom the production should take place. So for whom the production should take place implies which economic agent should come into play. Now, which economic agent should come into play is another very important essential criteria, because here is where we are focusing on the consumers, and that is the sole thing which is responsible for driving the economic systems. Now, let's focus on the three types of systems one by one. So, as we said, the planned economic systems has the production decisions being taken by the government. You have resource allocation, resource control that is taken by the government. Most of the production schedule occurs on a long term basis, and the wage differentials that are there are minimal. You also have minimal engagement in the international market, since the economy is self sufficient in itself, and as we know, the economy is self sufficient in itself, the international market would have a minimum impact or minimum effect onto a planned economy. So, what do you think are actually the benefits of this planned economy? There is better economies of scale, there is cost saving because of the social equality that is being created. No wastage is being brought, as any kind of competition which could be wasteful is totally removed or eliminated from the system. The next thing, social equality, as we already said, because you have the basic needs that is being met for one and all. Social protection is being provided by the government, where government brings in rules to protect the individuals. And finally, there is employment of the resources, so that all the factors of production, as we discussed in the previous session, which we call as cell, the capital, land, labor, and enterprise, are fully utilized in a planned economy. The next comes, despite of all these advantages we have noticed here, there are certain things that are still missing. First is the economic freedom. Incentive to rise. So since there is lack of incentives into the economy, all of them would remain onto the same phase, there is a lack of incentive or a lack of feeling that helps one to rise beyond. There is lack of career choices, we could say, and also there is lack of bureaucratic systems because of the insufficient decisions that are taking place. The decision making is totally inefficient in itself, and prices are actually not determining the resources. So what we are trying to understand is there are certain loopholes in a planned economic system that are witnessed. Might be it was one of the reasons that there was a need for the market systems to evolve. When the market systems evolved, there was the market forces that came into play for the demand and supply. Free economies developed. Hong Kong is a very good example of free economy. Private sector took on the decision to decide how to produce, for whom to produce, what to produce. There was no absolute government interference that was seen. The resources was on the basis of the prices. Financial incentives were given to those who were performing good. Competition existed into the market, and there was lot of choices, lot of opportunities because of this competition that came into play. And this market economy became a kind of key aspect for the supply side economies to work. So there were certain number of advantages associated to it that could be highlighted. So those was increase in the efficiency that was seen. Also there was freedom of choice. Since there was no government regulation, there was lot of freedom that was seen for choice making. And because of the incentives, people started to work harder in order to get better incentives. So definitely it came along with its own advantages. But over the years, it was realized that there are disadvantages associated with market economies. How come? Since it's market driven, it's only for a profit motive. What happens is there is resource depletion, pollution, climate change, and all those environmental factors are affected because of it. There is higher amount of social and income inequalities that come into play. The rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. Social hardships come into play, but because it's only through the voluntary charity organizations that you can now have social equality that could be talked about. Or even if there are basic services that are required, be it a street lighting, public roads, that is not a concern of a private sector unless and until it's outside the setup of a private organization. The next is there are instances where wasteful competition arises. Now what do we imply by wasteful competition? It could be in a means that market is trying to capture through various techniques the mentality of the consumer. Pester power is a very good term used where children try to negotiate with their parents either by nagging or by annoyance in order to convince them to purchase certain goods and services. So that is where you have market tactics that come into play, and it is a less safer environment for the consumer, of course. So that is where we focus on the market systems that is there. But since we saw the planned economy, its advantages and disadvantages, which might have reaped the market economy with its advantages, but the disadvantages evolved again. And so there was a need to bring in a balance between the two. And this balance was brought about by a mixed economic system. The market economic system, Heritage Foundation has talked about the economic freedom index where Hong Kong tops the list under this, and Singapore is the second best under a market economic system. It is also seen there is a very high correlation between the economic freedom as well as the standard of living that is seen. Coming on to mixed economy, as I said, it is a balance between the planned economy and then the market economy. So the degree of involvement of either the market or the government is different. So as we said, in America you have higher proportion of private involvement that is seen. On the other hand, in UK you have nearly 45% of GDP that comes through public. In France it's 43% of the GDP coming from public. So those are again good examples of mixed economy. Other good examples are India, Japan, Australia, Sweden, Ireland, Italy. So those are very very good examples of mixed economy. But there are a number of advantages. Those could be clubbing up the advantages that we saw for a planned and a market economy system on to some extent. So it is necessary that we are trying to assimilate the best of the market economic systems as well as the planned economic systems. We are trying to provide necessary services to all. Goods should be brought on a competitively marked basis. Hard work would be given incentive, and there would be better degree of economic freedom that would take into place. But on the other hand, there are disadvantages associated with it. Those disadvantages are government might be paying higher prices due to the profit motive that is coming from the private sector, and the public sectors must be funded from some end. So it could be in the form of taxation coming up, or it could be in the form of fees that are levied. So those are some of the disadvantages that we see on into a mixed economic system. But yes, under the economic systems that exist across the globe, we have either the examples of planned economic system, mixed economic system, and market economy system. All of those have their own unique advantages and disadvantages on their end. But under a mixed economic system, under the economic intelligence unit, there was a very good study that was conducted on the education systems across the globe, and it was seen that there is a very significant contrast. The first ranking country was Finland, where education is 100% funded by the state, but it starts at the age of 7 with no test or minimum homeworks that are given up to the teenage period. In contrast to that, the next state that comes in, the next country that comes in, South Korea. And South Korea, we see there is lot of pressure in education. With education starting from grade 3, you have regular rigorous testing methodologies that are adopted, and there is a very high popularity of after school tuition classes in South Korea. So there are contrast and combinations that are seen across the globe on each of the frontiers if we analyze it closely. So this is a series where we will be discussing the most important topics under your economics. So stay tuned for many more updates. Have a wonderful evening.